photograph is said to freeze a moment in time. The Fermanagh railway era was the era of black and white photography. So Headhunters have commissioned various railway artists to do some paintings of the era, which show the railway in its full colour and, as it were, bring it to life. The painting in front of us shows the Clogher Valley Railway. Now, the Clogher Valley Railway, unlike the Great Northern lines, was what was called narrow gauge. There's only 3 foot between the rails, whereas on the normal railways, such as the GNR, the gauge was 5 foot 3 inches, much wider. This suited the Clogher Valley Railway because, as you can see it in this scene, the railway goes up the middle of Fivemiletown Street. Now, those of you who know Fivemiletown will know that the main street in Fivemiletown is not particularly broad. But could you imagine a train going up the middle of the street nowadays? But even in this scene, which is supposed to be in the late 20s and 30s, the street was quite congested. You've got a steamroller here assisting in tarring the road. You've men with horses and carts, delivery trucks, the old clock which has been recently restored in Fivemiletown, and it's quite a busy scene. And there you have the engine, which is of course a tramway engine, which means that by law the motion had to be guarded with what were called skirts, in case some of the moving parts would get caught in somebody's clothing or cause damage. So that's the scene. The Clogher Valley Railway lasted until the end of 1941. So right in the middle of World War II, it closed, and that was the end of it forever. One story about the Clogher Valley Railway is that a woman called Maggie Coulter kept a goat. She lived at the Belfast end of Fivemiletown, and her goat, quite often when the train was approaching, would stand in the middle of the track and refused to move. They would blow the whistle, but the goat still stood its ground, and then the fireman would start to fire coal at it. Again, the goat simply stood its ground. The only way they could shift it quite often was that the fireman would take 1 or 2 hot coals from the fire and fire those at the goat. At that stage, the goat finally moved. Many cynics said this was simply a way of Maggie Coulter getting free coal for her fire, because when the train went past, she'd pick up the coal that had been fired at the goat, and this would help her fire.